Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Rise this afternoon to speak to Government Motion number 9, which addresses the composition of committees of the House and joint committees. This is an important matter because it strikes at the very heart of how our Parliament performs its duties. The question is simple. Should a party that has a majority in the House of Commons also have a majority in House or parliamentary committees? And Mr. Speaker, I believe the answer is clear. It is undeniable. It is yes. It should have a majority at committees. This is one of the very principles that underlie the work of this place. It is a long-standing tradition of our Parliament, and moreover, Mr. Speaker, it is basic logic. A majority in one place, the House, clearly translates to a majority in another place, the parliamentary committees that are an extension of the House. For all of these reasons, I call on fellow members of Parliament to take a reasoned and reasonable approach to this motion as they participate in this debate. Monsieur le Président, permettez-moi.
Mr. Speaker, let me begin by simply stating the obvious. Parliamentary committees are really the workhorses of Parliament. Committees receive their mandates from the House, and they conduct studies, they review bills, and they carry out investigations relevant to their mandates. Committees are not only the forum for the detailed examination of bills, because the House debates only the principles and the scope of bills at second reading, but they are also the forums where members of the government can engage in dialogue with members of other parties in order to reconcile their differing perspectives for the benefit of their constituents and, more broadly, for the benefit of Canadians. We are navigating through very difficult times. We're facing challenges including evolving issues with trade and relations with our partners, and we're also navigating a highly uncertain geopolitical landscape. As we spend time in the House of Commons debating these issues, these strategies, and policies that we can implement to address these challenges, the true work of developing detailed and constructive solutions often falls to committees.
The Prime Minister has been clear, Mr. Speaker. He expects to see a Parliament that delivers results for Canadians.
Hear, hear.
And he expects Liberal MPs to work collaboratively with their colleagues on all sides of the House. We need to move ahead with a House of Commons that works together on the many challenges of our times. And we need to move ahead with committees that work hard to closely scrutinize legislation to make it better, while holding public hearings on a range of critical policies where Canadians are demanding action. Mr. Speaker, let me turn to the proposal contained in Government Motion number 9. This is a routine motion that should not be seen as controversial. The standing orders of the House of Commons establish the number of members on each standing committee, and as such, any change to the numbers requires the House to adopt a new motion. House of Commons Procedure and Practice, First Edition, makes it clear on page 819 where it states, quote, where the governing party has a majority in the House, it will also have a majority on every House committee, unquote. There is an undeniable, long-standing principle in Parliament. A party that has the majority of seats in the House also has a majority in committees. This is at the core of our Westminster system of government. The motion proposed by the government does just that. As House of Commons Procedure and Practice, 4th edition, states on page 790, quote, party representation on committees reflects the standings of recognized parties in the House, unquote. At the beginning of a Parliament or at the beginning of a new session of Parliament, or in some cases from time to time, motions respecting the composition of committees are agreed to in the House in collaboration with the parties without any debate. For these members who might take umbrage with Government Motion number 9, I want to point out the counterfactual. If by some turn of fate a government were to lose its majority over the course of its mandate, opposition members would surely want the memberships of committees to reflect party standings and the composition of the House. This point is beyond debate. In fact, I would assert that if this scenario were to play out, I would fully expect that without agreement of the parties to proceed, an opposition party would simply use an opposition day motion to implement a change in the composition of committees to reflect the standings in the House. That would result in 1 day of debate on an opposition day motion, a mechanism that would obviate any amendment unless the party proposing the motion agreed to it, followed by a vote. I would further assert that the government has taken an approach with government motion number 9 to ensure that no party that is eligible to sit on committees loses any members on those committees. This was a deliberate decision on our part. We could have, Mr. Speaker, proposed to closely mirror a membership structure of previous majority governments, which would have required removing members of the official opposition from committees. We chose not to do this. We chose the inclusive approach. We chose the collaborative approach. La raison pour laquelle
The reason we have done this is that we are serious about our intention to work constructively and collaboratively with other parties to advance an agenda that responds to the needs of Canadians right now. This is not a political talking point. It is something we consider important for our country, critical, dare I say, for our country at this time. I will now turn to the practical implications for committees and the important work they do. One of the key aspects of committees is that committees provide a mechanism for members of Parliament to cultivate and refine parliamentary skills and enhance political expertise in areas falling within the committee's mandates. Not only does serving on a committee help develop parliamentary skills in legislative matters and in policy development and analysis, but committees can and should be a forum where members work together to address issues and promote the interests of Canadians. Through this work, members build relationships that may be less driven by partisan interests and can lead to more productive exchanges among themselves on policy issues important to their constituents and to Canadians. I believe that Government Motion Number 9 is a reasonable proposal, consistent with the long-standing practices of this House and other Westminster parliaments.
Fully believes in the productive functioning of the House and its committees. I see this motion as not only an opportunity to deliver on this promise to Canadians, but also to reset our comportment and refocus our combined efforts to deliver real and meaningful results for Canadians. For those members who claim that this motion will lessen their ability to hold the government to account, I say this: not a single opposition MP has been removed from any committee. Their ability to propose motions and studies and amendments to legislation remains intact. Their ability to have different MPs from their caucus participate in committees as associate members or substitutions remains intact. And their opportunity to make a persuasive case for their proposals remains intact. Ministers will continue to testify at committee and be held to account. Government officials will continue to testify before those same committees. Furthermore, the opposition gets 45 minutes each and every sitting day and question period to hold the government to account. They have 22 opposition days a year to move motions on issues of importance to them. Members will continue to have a variety of ways to obtain information from the government to hold it to account. There are the formal mechanisms, which I have mentioned, like having ministers appear at committees to testify and answer questions on a range of issues, such as legislation, studies, and obviously the estimates. There are also order paper questions, petitions, late shows in the House. Further, I would suggest that there are the informal mechanisms, such as speaking with ministers, secretaries of state, and parliamentary secretaries about issues of interest or concern respecting their portfolios, and to obtain technical briefings from departmental officials. These are effective accountability and transparency measures that I would continue to encourage members to leverage. My fear is that some members across the aisle are more interested in scoring political points and creating divisions for their own partisan gain at a time when we really need to cooperate, to collaborate in good faith to deliver on issues of critical importance for our country. Collaboration, that is the approach to politics that Canadians tell me, and I know tell them, that they want to see in this place for all elected representatives. They don't want to see partisan gamesmanship. So, Mr. Speaker, let me make one thing clear. The Conservatives have said they will bring forward an amendment to the motion that would leave 3 of the opposition-chaired committees as they currently are, with a majority of opposition MPs. Our view is that this amendment is not proper. We would oppose it. Once again, let me repeat the reason for this. There is an undeniable, long-standing principle in Parliament that a party which has the majority of seats in the House also has a majority in committees. Not some committees, all committees. There are not 2 tiers of committees in this Parliament, and the principle applies to all of them equally. Mr. Speaker, what we are proposing is to adjust committee membership proportionally to reflect the party standings in the House. It is as simple as that. There are no games, no untoward tactics, no strategies here. It should come as no surprise to anyone that the government believes that the party that has a majority of seats in the House of Commons has a majority of seats in parliamentary committees. This concept is as old as our parliamentary system itself. Nous voulons rassembler les Canadiens.
We want to bring Canadians together in a spirit of unity. Our government has been working and will continue to work with all provinces and territories, regardless of their political leanings, to build a strong Canada. The House of Commons will always be the People's House of Commons. Our government will be accountable to this House and to Canadians for all of our actions. This motion does not call that objective into question.
Let me return to what we have proposed. Our government has a majority of seats in the House. All we are asking of this House is that the structure of committees reflect this reality. We have committed to the parties and to Canadians that we want this Parliament to work for Canadians, and we committed to do this work constructively and in collaboration with other parties. We have been doing just that, and it has been delivering results for Canadians. We proposed a model for committees that does not reduce the number of opposition members on committees for 2 reasons. First is that we believe committee work makes better parliamentarians, and secondly, because we believe in the productive and collaborative power of committees when they come together to do the hard work to improve government proposals. Nous croyons en ces.
We believe in these things because we believe in the power and integrity of our institutions. And these institutions become strong, resilient, and effective when those who criticize and oppose certain proposals are seen and heard in the process. This is how we build resilience and cooperation, and in doing so, we show Canadians that even when people disagree on certain points, we can all agree that Canada has immense potential. This is what makes Canada strong.
Is what makes Canada strong. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Questions and comments. Question et commentaire. The honourable member for Barrie South, Innisfil.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And in the words of that great country music singer, George Strait, I've got some oceanfront property in Arizona to sell you. That was quite the speech. Mr. Speaker, in his, the minister mentioned that if it were the will of the opposition parties, if for some reason this majority that the Liberals have cobbled together with floor crossers were to decline into a minority situation, if the opposition parties did decide to use an opposition motion, and that motion did pass, would the minister respect that decision and not call it a matter of confidence if and when that scenario were to happen? That's a fair question to ask him, Mr. Speaker.
Reverend House Leader.
I think my speech speaks for itself, Mr. Speaker.
Questions and comments. Question et commentaire. L'honourable député de Berthier-Masquinongé.
The honourable member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Look, this is another great example of beautiful liberal virtue signaling speech. Again, they don't walk the talk. What they're saying is they want proportional representation that represents what's going on in the House. But in this motion, not only was there no prior consultation, but they're also adding 2 government side members in each committee, whereas one would have been amply enough to ensure a majority. I'd like the parliamentary leader, the House leader, the government House leader to justify this other than through giving the false reasoning according to which they do not want the chair to have a right to vote, despite the fact that that is clearly set out in the rules. Well, you, Mr. Speaker, do not have to break a tie at each occasion where there is a vote in this House, and we do not believe committee chairs should have to systematically break ties either. And that is the reason why we have provided for 2 government members without doing away with representation for the Bloc and for the Conservative parties.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the Minister for his speech. I'd like to ask him a question, sort of do a thought experiment. What would happen if this was in the opposite situation, if the government was in the majority, lost members to the opposing party? What would be the principle at work then?
Government House Leader.
Thank you to my colleague from Hull, Elmer, from the Outaouais region, in fact. I discussed this at length in my speech. The principle applies. A majority in the House of Commons involves a majority throughout committees, the House committees.
House of Commons represents a majority on committees. A minority situation for a government in the House of Commons would obviously require a reevaluation and a reordering of those committees.
Questions and comments, Honourable Opposition House Leader.
I fear my counterpart in the government bench has missed his calling to be a speechwriter in the Politburo because there were so many things there that he said that were directly contradicted by what he was saying. For example, he said that this is all being done in a spirit of collaboration. They are literally taking away the need for them to collaborate with this motion, Mr. Speaker, by giving themselves a majority. But another falsehood that he stated was that there are no 2 tiers in committee. He then referenced the fact, in committees, he then referenced the fact that the 3 oversight committees are in fact chaired by the opposition. That is a different tier of committee. Those committees have always been treated differently by the standing orders and by the usual practices of the House precisely because they are a different sort of committee. They are not the committees that legislation proceeds through. They are committees that provide oversight. And it is through those committees that the opposition has uncovered liberal corruption, scandals, inappropriate use of taxpayers' dollars, and that the government voted against each one of those investigations. So why not at least preserve the oversight role of the opposition on those 3 committees: public accounts, government operations, and ethics?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Well, Mr. Speaker, my honourable friend was in your chair at one point. He knows that over the years the House of Commons have decided to give 3 committees: government operations, public accounts, and now I'm drawing a blank. Ethics, indeed, Mr. Speaker. Those committees, the ability to be chaired by an opposition member. We, of course, will be continuing that practice, and those committees, guided as they are by opposition members of Parliament, will be able to continue to call witnesses, call on documents, and to examine any issue that they choose in their wisdom.
Question and commentaire.
The Honourable Member for Gaspésie, les Îles de la Madeleine, Listigouche. Mr. Speaker, thank you. If it's all talk and no action, the talk itself is worthless. The government says it wants to work constructively with the opposition, wants to cooperate. But what do? They come down with a motion without even taking the time to contact us at the Bloc Québécois to negotiate ahead of time, even though they know full well that we are responsible, rigorous partners with whom it is possible, quite feasible to work. So on that front, it's a fail. But now, can the Government House Leader tell us this? Can he confirm, and this is another test, that he won't impose this under closure? That would be another way that he really wants to work in a cooperative way. The Government House Leader. I understand that the Bloc cares about the rules, the standing orders of this House, and that's why it is mystifying to me that the Bloc did not indicate that they, of course, will follow the principles of this that go back to the origins of our very parliamentary system. That is, a majority in the House of Commons is then recognized throughout all bodies and House committees. So I certainly hope the Bloc Québécois, in its own official position, will reinforce that point or reiterate it. I would tell my colleague that in no way have we changed the composition of committees as far as the representation of the Bloc Québécois is concerned. I don't know what we would have had to negotiate with them.
Violence.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This gives us a chance to look at, again, and I'm going to ask the government leader in the House and the Honourable Minister, the recognized party status rules were created by law in 1963 to do one thing only, and that was to provide funding to parties with over 12 members of parliament in the House. That law said nothing about changing the rights that each member of parliament has vis-a-vis each other. As the leader of the Green Party of Canada with the seat for Saanich Gulf Islands, I should have equal rights in theory with every other member in this place, because the 1963 rule did not say, and no rule has ever said, that members of parliament and parties with fewer than 12 MPs can't sit on committees. I verified this quite recently with our clerk to make sure, as the clerk described it, a practice of long-standing and not a rule. My question to the Honourable Minister is, why has the government decided it's okay to provide funding to the NDP members, but not ensure that those very fine members sit on committees?
Honourable Government House Leader.
The Board of Internal Economy, which makes its decisions, has decided on a funding formula indeed for parties in this House that has no connection to the item at hand. And I would simply say to my honourable colleague that we are all equals in this House. That member, me, the Leader of the Opposition, the Prime Minister indeed. We are all equals when we meet in this place. We all enjoy one vote. We all enjoy the same privileges, the same ability to compel accountability, to vote on budgets, and to govern in the best way possible.
It's a brief question, a member for Mount Royal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wanted to thank the Minister for his speech. I wanted to ask, is the Minister aware of any point in Canadian history where a majority government has not had a majority on committees? And is the Minister aware of any time where certain committees have had a different composition, where the majority government has not had a majority on those few committees but not on others?
The Honourable Government House Leader, brief response.
Well, in fact, that's a very good question. We've searched the annals of history, not just in Canada, which is, of course, goes back to 1867 in this place, Mr. Speaker, but indeed Westminster parliaments from time immemorial, and we are unable to find an example where members from one party constituted a majority of the seats and did not constitute a majority on the other institutions of that House of Commons or of that parliament.
Resuming debate. Reprise débat. The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before I begin my speech, I was just wondering if I could get unanimous consent to share my time. This is one of those rare circumstances where I need the consent of the House to do that. I'm hoping they'll accommodate that.
Is it agreed to split the time? Agreed, so ordered. The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I just want to pick up on the last thing that the Government House Leader said, because I think this is the nub of the misleading nature of what the government is doing here. He said that they could never find an example where the makeup of committees did not reflect the makeup of the House. Yes, precisely because there has never before been a situation where a government has changed the fundamental nature of itself through floor crossings and backroom deals. Every other time that the makeup of committee reflected the makeup of the House, it is because that is what happened at the election. The